You've been using pennies your whole life. But what if I told you one of them could change everything? This tiny 1-cent coin might be worth thousands, and most people don't even notice it. If you have this coin in your pocket, you might be holding a hidden fortune without even realizing it. Because today we are diving deep into one of the most surprising coins in American history, the 1956 D-Wheat penny. A small copper coin that most people ignore, toss into jars, or leave forgotten in drawers. But in rare cases, this tiny penny has shocked collectors around the world with values reaching unbelievable levels, even up to $80,000 in special conditions. Now imagine this. You are cleaning an old box, maybe something left from your parents or grandparents, and suddenly you find a handful of old pennies. Dirty, worn, ordinary at first glance. But one of them, just one, could completely change your financial story forever. That is exactly why collectors say again and again, if you have this coin, you might be the luckiest person in the world. The story of the 1956 D-Wheat penny begins in a very different America. It was a mid-1950s, a time when rock and roll was beginning to rise, televisions were becoming common in homes, and the American economy was growing stronger after the post-war boom. The U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins to keep up with everyday life, and among them was the Lincoln wheat cent, one of the most iconic coin designs ever created. The wheat penny design itself is deeply historical. On the front, you see Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, a symbol of unity, freedom, and sacrifice. This portrait was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, making it the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. That alone makes it special. On the back, 2 simple wheat stalks frame the words 1 cent and United States of America. It may look simple, even ordinary, but that design carried a message of national strength and agricultural prosperity. That is why collectors still call it the wheat cent, even decades after production ended in 1958. Now let's focus on the star of today's story, the 1956 D-Wheat penny. The D mint mark tells us it was minted in Denver. In 1956, the Denver Mint was working at full speed, producing massive numbers of pennies for circulation. In fact, over 1 billion pennies were minted that year across all facilities, which is exactly why most people assume this coin is worthless today. But here is where the mystery begins. Even though billions were made, not all coins are created equal. Some were struck with better detail. Some were preserved in near-perfect condition. And a very small number may have unique errors or exceptional characteristics that make them extremely valuable to collectors. This is where the excitement builds, because the difference between a normal penny and a rare collectible can be subtle. It could be the sharpness of Lincoln's face, the shine of copper, or even tiny minting mistakes that most people would never notice without a magnifying glass. Collectors often ask one powerful question: what makes a 1956 D penny valuable if so many exist? The answer lies in condition, rarity within condition, and collector demand. For example, a normal 1956 D-Wheat penny in circulated condition, the kind you might find in pocket change or old jars, is usually worth just a few cents to a few dollars. Nothing exciting at first glance. But now imagine something very different, a 1956 D penny that was never really used. A coin that stayed protected for decades, untouched by time, still showing its original mint luster. In numismatic grading terms, this is known as mint state condition, and this is where things start to become interesting, because high-grade examples can jump in value dramatically. Collectors and auction houses often compete fiercely for coins in MS-67 or higher grades. These are not just coins anymore. They are historical artifacts preserved in near-perfect condition. But there is even more. Sometimes a coin can have a minting error. An error could include doubling in the letter's misalignment or unusual strike characteristics. These mistakes are rare because the U.S. Mint has strict quality control. But when they do slip through, collectors go crazy for them. Because in the world of coin collecting, mistakes are not flaws, they are treasures. Now picture this, a rare 1956 D-Wheat penny in near-perfect condition, possibly with a rare mint error appearing at auction. Collectors from around the world start bidding. The price climbs higher and higher, driven not by the coin's face value, but by history, rarity, and obsession. And in extreme cases, certain versions of rare wheat pennies like this have reportedly reached values that shock even experienced collectors, sometimes climbing into tens of thousands of dollars, and in special high-grade or error conditions. Figures approaching $80,000 have been mentioned in collector circles. That is why people never look at pennies the same way again after learning this. Because what looks like a simple copper coin could actually be a hidden piece of financial history waiting to be discovered. And the most shocking part? Most people who own these coins have no idea they even exist in their collection. They are sitting in jars, forgotten boxes, old wallets, and inherited coin stashes completely unnoticed. So before you dismiss that old penny, before you say it's just 1 cent, take a closer look. Because in 1956, D. Wheat penny is not just a coin. It is a reminder that treasure does not always come in gold or silver. Sometimes it comes in copper and fits right in the palm of your hand. And this is only the beginning of the story. In the next part, we will uncover how to identify the rare versions of this coin, what specific details collectors look for under magnification, and how a simple penny can turn into a life-changing discovery. Just wait until you see what comes next. If you have this coin in your pocket, stop for a moment, because you might be holding something far more valuable than you ever imagined. Today we are talking about the 1996 D. Lincoln 1 cent coin, a small copper coin that millions of people have seen used and completely ignored. But hidden inside this ordinary-looking penny, there's a surprising story that every collector dreams about. Because in the world of coin collecting, even the most common coins can sometimes become unexpectedly valuable, and the 1996 D penny is one of those coins that people constantly overlook. Now imagine this. You're going through an old jar, maybe something left behind in your house, maybe coins collected over many years, and suddenly you find a 1996 D penny. At first glance, it looks completely normal. Nothing special, just another penny. But what if I told you that certain versions of this coin can be worth far more than 1 cent, and in rare cases, thousands of dollars? That is why collectors always say, never judge a coin by its face value. The 1996 D. Lincoln cent was minted in Denver, as indicated by the small D mark under the date. In 1996, the United States Mint was producing massive quantities of pennies for everyday circulation. These coins were part of the modern Lincoln Memorial reverse design, which had been used since 1959. On the front of the coin, we see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, one of the most respected presidents in American history. His image has appeared on the penny since 1909, making it one of the longest-running designs in U.S. coinage history. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly with detailed columns and even a tiny seated statue of Lincoln visible inside the structure if you look closely. This design represents unity, legacy, and respect for history. Now here comes the interesting part. Because in 1996, D penny is not rare in terms of production. Millions upon millions were made. Most people assume it has no collector value. And in normal circulated condition, that is mostly true. It is usually worth just 1 cent. But coin collecting is never just about how many were made. It is about condition, quality, and rarity within rarity. A regular 1996 D penny that has been used in circulation, scratched, worn, or faded will not bring any special value. But a coin that has been perfectly preserved, untouched by time, still showing full mint shine, can be something completely different. Collectors call this condition mint state, and the higher the grade, the more powerful the value becomes. A 1996 D penny in MS65 or MS66 condition may already attract collector interest, but once you reach ultra-high grades like MS67 or MS68, the coin becomes extremely rare in that quality level. At that point, collectors and investors start paying serious attention. Because here is something most people don't realize. Even modern coins have become rare when preserved in perfect condition. But there is more. Sometimes, coins are not valuable because of their condition, but because of mistakes made during the minting process. These are called mint errors, and they are one of the most exciting parts of coin collecting. A 1996 D penny with a doubling error, where letters or numbers appear slightly duplicated, can become much more valuable than a normal penny. Some collectors actively search for these small details using magnification tools, because even a tiny variation can completely change the coin's value. Other possible errors include off-center strikes, die cracks, or unusual surface characteristics. These mistakes happen when something goes slightly wrong during production at the mint. And because modern minting is highly controlled, true errors are relatively rare, and rarity creates value. Now imagine a scenario where in 1996, D penny is found in perfect condition, combined with rare mint error, and then submitted for professional grading. Once graded, it enters a collector market, where demand can drive prices much higher than expected. This is where stories begin to circulate in the coin collecting world, stories of certain modern pennies selling for hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars, depending on their grade and uniqueness. And in very rare cases, exceptional examples with top grades and dramatic errors have been associated with values that can reach astonishing levels in private sales and auctions, sometimes even discussed in the range of tens of thousands of dollars, depending on market demand. That is why collectors never ignore modern pennies anymore, because what looks ordinary today can become extraordinary tomorrow. And the most shocking part is this: most people who actually own these coins have no idea what they're holding. They're sitting in coin jars, piggy banks, old drawers, and forgotten collections, completely unaware that a small detail could change everything. So if you have a 1996 D penny, don't rush to dismiss it. Take a closer look. Check the condition. Look for sharp details. Look for unusual markings. Because sometimes the smallest things are the most powerful clues. And this is the real magic of coin collecting. It teaches us that value is not always obvious, and treasure is not always gold or silver. Sometimes it is a simple 1-cent coin, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right person to recognize it. And if you enjoyed this story, just wait, because there are even more modern coins with hidden surprises that most people never notice. And the next discovery might be even more shocking than this one. And that brings us to the end of today's story about the 1996 D 1-cent coin. Now you understand why collectors don't just look at coins as money. They look at them as hidden history, hidden mistakes, and hidden opportunities. Because even something as small as a penny can sometimes carry a story worth far more than its face value. So before you close this video, take one more look at your coin jars, your old drawers, or any forgotten collection you might have at home. Because you never know what could be sitting there right now, completely unnoticed, waiting to be discovered. And remember, the biggest mistake people make is thinking that valuable things always look valuable. In reality, some of the rarest treasures are the ones that look the most ordinary. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because in the next video, we will uncover another surprising coin that could be hiding in plain sight, and you won't believe what it's worth. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. If you have this coin in your pocket, stop everything right now, because you might be holding a piece of history that most people completely ignore. Today we are talking about the 1976 Lincoln 1-cent coin, a small copper penny that looks ordinary at first glance, but carries a surprising story from one of the most important years in American history. Because 1976 was not just any year. It was a year America celebrated its 200th birthday, the bicentennial, a massive national celebration filled with fireworks, parades, commemorative designs, and special editions of coins that are still remembered today. Now imagine this: millions of people were receiving change that year, spending coins without a second thought, not realizing that even the most common penny from that time could one day become a collector's curiosity. And here's where the story begins. The 1976 Lincoln cent was minted during a period when the United States Mint was producing huge quantities of coins for everyday use. Inflation was rising, commerce was booming, and pennies were being produced in massive numbers to keep the economy moving. On the front of the coin, you see the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln, calm, serious, and timeless. A portrait that has been used since 1909, symbolizing leadership, unity, and resilience. On the back, you see the Lincoln Memorial design, one of the most iconic reverse designs in American coin history. Inside the memorial, if you look carefully, you can even see the tiny seated statue of Lincoln carved into the structure. It's a detail most people never notice, but it's there quietly reminding us of history within history. Now, here's the first big truth about the 1976 penny. Most of them are extremely common. In fact, billions were made. That means if you find one in normal circulated condition, scratched, worn, or dull, it is usually only worth face value. 1 cent. Nothing special. And that's why most people completely ignore it. But coin collectors know something very important. Rarity is not always about how many were made. Sometimes it is about condition, preservation, and tiny details that most people overlook. So even though the 1976 penny is common, certain versions can become surprisingly valuable. Let's talk about condition first. A penny that has been in circulation for decades will show where the details will be soft, the shine will be gone, and the copper color may darken. These coins are considered low grade and have no significant collector premium. But now imagine something very different. A 1976 penny that was never used in circulation, stored carefully for decades, still shining like it just left the mint. In numismatic terms, this is called mint state. And in higher mint state grades, something interesting happens. The coin becomes much more desirable to collectors who build sets based on quality, not just rarity. A perfectly preserved penny from 1976 can stand out simply because so few survived in flawless condition. But there's another layer to this story, and this is where things get exciting. Because sometimes coins are not valuable because they are perfect, but because they are imperfect in the right way. These are called mint errors. A 1976 penny with a doubling error, where letters or numbers appear slightly doubled, can attract strong collector interest. Or an off-center strike, where the design is not perfectly aligned. Or even small die cracks that create unusual raised lines on the coin surface. These are not planned. They are mistakes from the minting process. But in the world of coin collecting, mistakes often become treasures. Now imagine discovering a 1976 penny with rare error in high-grade condition, preserved for decades without damage. That combination is what creates serious collector demand. Because collectors are not just buying coins, they are buying uniqueness. And uniqueness drives value. While most 1976 pennies will always remain worth just 1 cent, special examples with high grades or rare mint errors can sometimes sell for significantly more, from a few dollars to hundreds, and in rare, highly sought-after cases, even more depending on the market and collector demand. That is why experienced collectors never dismiss modern pennies anymore. They know that hidden value is often invisible at first glance. And here is the most surprising part. Many of these valuable coins are still sitting in everyday places right now. Coin jars, old wallets, kitchen drawers, forgotten piggy banks, family collections that have not been sorted in decades, completely unnoticed. So if you ever come across a 1976 penny, don't just spend it without looking. Take a moment, check the details, look at the condition, see if anything stands out. Because sometimes the smallest coin in your hand can carry the biggest surprise in your collection. And that is the real lesson of the 1976 Lincoln cent. It reminds us that history is not always locked in museums. Sometimes it is hiding in your pocket change, waiting for someone to finally notice its story. And if you enjoyed this journey into the world of hidden coin treasures, then stay tuned. Because next time we will uncover another ordinary-looking coin that might be worth far more than you ever imagined. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Now you know the truth about the 1976 Lincoln 1 cent coin, a coin most people still see as nothing more than spare change, but one that can sometimes surprise even experienced collectors when it shows up in the right condition or with rare minting errors. So before you ignore your pennies again, take a closer look, because hidden value doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it sits quietly in a jar, waiting for someone curious enough to notice. And remember, every coin has a story. Some are common, some are rare, and a few, just a few, can completely change how you look at everyday money forever. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next coin discovery. Because in the next video, we'll uncover another surprising penny that might already be in your collection, and its story might shock you even more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.